Motoring 2013 is brought to you in part by Shell V-Power Premium Gasoline.
It was the last province to join Canada back in 1949. And could you imagine this country without Newfoundland and Labrador? I don't think so. And like Canada's West, in Newfoundland, the pickup truck is king. So naturally, General Motors chose the Rock for maybe its biggest truck launch in recent memory. The pickup truck is the #1 vehicle in North America, period. Well, we're here to check out the 2014 Silverado. It's been 7 long years since its last redesign, so yes, the pressure is on GM. Now, of course, we all know Motoring's truck guys are Bill Gardner and Howard Elmer, and we brought Howard out with us here to the Rock to help us decide if GM got it right.
We're ready. We're ready to go do battle. This is the best truck General Motors has ever built. We're excited to launch it and get going.
This is a huge, huge watershed. They haven't done anything since '07. Then they were in bankruptcy. Then they had to get their financial house in order. They had no money for R&D. And so 7 years later, we finally have a new truck. And as a matter of fact, this truck was a year delayed specifically because they were looking at competition and seeing Ford come out with an EcoBoost. They watched Ram come out with an 8-speed transmission, new bodies, new interiors, and they weren't going to come to the game with some half-assed pickups.
I spent a lot of my time looking very closely at what our competitors are doing. And this truck here represents years of learnings and making it better in every way from prior generations, and obviously looking closely at the competition, making sure that we're bringing out a truck that meets the customer's needs for hauling and towing and moving people comfortably.
The key thing that's changed is that at one time a truck was your second vehicle, and they were typically much cheaper than any car that you bought because they were used by one guy or two guys. Then we got to the point where we started introducing the crew cabs. Now crew cabs are more than half of all sales because frankly you can now have just one vehicle and they're luxurious. So this is the business end of the new Silverado. Now the box on a truck frankly hasn't changed in 100 years, but you can do a few things to make it more useful, and that's one of the things GM has done. First of all, you've got a tailgate now that's spring loaded. So this thing now drops nice and slowly, doesn't slam open anymore. As far as getting into the bed, GM has opted to go with a system where they've hollowed out this rear bumper, given you a handhold, and you can easily pull yourself up into the bed. This is different, of course, than Ford's system, which is more mechanical. This is not going to break. I like that. The other thing, of course, is up top here, we have a few more tie-down points. They're going to give you 4, but you could get as many as 9 in here if you wanted to. In addition to that, you've got LED lights, which will go underneath the frame rail. If you got a tonneau cover on top here, you turn them on, you now have light inside a dark space, or for that matter, just at night. Again, one more thing to help make this work, and that's something that any working guy is going to appreciate.
3 all-new engines, which feature our Ecotec 3 technology. We started with our 5.3-liter V8. We're just starting production of our 4.3-liter V6, and then we bring on our 6.2-liter V8 later in the fall.
One thing I can appreciate in the Silverado is the interior. It's comfortable, a quiet ride. All the knobs are large, easy to get to. You've got enough electrical outlets here for almost anything you'd want to run. But what I really like is the instrument dash. I mean, an owner, they like to know that their truck is feeling pretty good that day. The only way to know is to look at these instruments. You've got oil temperature, engine temperature, and so on. And you know, it's a feature that's disappearing in most vehicles today, and that's too bad.
Trucks are a completely different gig than cars in as much as you don't want to mess with a certain shape. You can massage it, you can clean it up, you can round some corners, you can pull something, but you don't want to change it too much because that's what guys identify with, and they're perfectly fine with the truck looking the same year after year. I'm really happy to see GM back in the game. 3-4 years ago, I was scared that there may never be another Chevy pickup. So it's great to see them there. And this competition is what actually makes this market fantastic, because they're pushing so hard that you're going to start seeing improvements every single year, right across the board.
Here's an example of a good balanced car. I can make it do what I want. Even though it's front-wheel drive, I can back it into this corner simply by going like this.
China is now the #1 car market in the world. Will the people there live long enough to enjoy those cars? More later on Kenzie's Corner.
Subaru have long marched to the beat of their own drum. However, of late, well, they've been inching ever closer to the mainstream. On this edition of Test Drive, we take a look at the 4th generation Forester. Subaru describes the rework of the Forester as evolutionary, and in that, well, there's no question. It takes a keen eye to spot the differences between the 3rd and 4th generations. Whether that is a bad thing is up to you, the consumer. The good news is that the body and underpinnings take a significant turn for the better. They've done a good job in cleaning up the Forester's interior. Nice materials, logical layout, and if you go with the Limited, leather seats, a full panoramic moonroof, and a Harman Kardon audio system. The other thing I did like, right up here, there's a set of dials. Now what it does, it shows you things like boost pressure, all the way through to fuel economy, and what the all-wheel drive system is doing. It also shows you the view through the rear view camera, but therein lies the rub. It's too small. While the base Forester is powered by a 170 horsepower 2.5 litre flat 4, the XT earns a 2 litre turbocharged engine that puts some real spice in the drive. It ups the output to 250 horsepower and, more importantly, 258 pound-feet of torque. If there is a nit, it is the Boxer engine's rather gruff demeanour. It runs smoothly, it just sounds anything but. I hate continuously annoying transmissions because of the noise and the motorboating they cause. However, in this Forester, there is a clever solution. It's called Subaru Intelligent Drive. Now, in manual, normal and sport modes, you get access to 6 gears through these paddle shifters. However, there is an even better mode. When you select Sport Sharp, you not only get much faster throttle reaction, you actually get 8 gears that shifts like a normal automatic, or you can use them manually. The bottom line, you know, I could actually live with a CVT, especially as it's formatted in this Forester. The Forester's suspension has been specifically retuned for the turbocharged models, with 10% stiffer springs up front and 20% in the rear than the non-turbocharged models. The handling is sharper and far more poised. The feedback from the steering is first rate and the body remains flat when the Forester is pushed. In fact, the roll that does surface is more perceived than real because of the elevated seating position. Through the pylons, the Forester put on a strong showing and easily matched the sportiest SUV in the segment. Another bonus is found in the turbo's upsized brakes. One of the improvements of this 4th generation Forester is found in the cargo capacity. Now with the seats up, 31.5 cubic feet, and if you fold them down, that grows to 68.5 cubic feet, which is up 5.5 cubic feet. Now that's a substantial increase. So what's the hang-up? Right here. Oh, if you're any taller than me, this tailgate sure loves to bite. While the Forester's manual transmission gets a fairly basic all-wheel drive system, the CVT-equipped models get a much better proactive system. By monitoring a number of inputs, it continuously divvies up the drive, sending the power to the wheels that can put it to the best use. The result is much better stability regardless of the conditions. It also features X mode. When engaged, the system optimizes the engine, transmission, brakes and stability control to provide better traction when you're off-road. Suffice it to say, it works very nicely. Whilst the styling of this new Forester is very evolutionary in nature, the rest of the changes add up to be significant. Much nicer power, much better handling, more cargo capacity and a nicer interior. It all comes together very nicely with but one problem: the pricing. This vehicle right here, and it is not the top of the line model, is almost $10,000 more than where the Forester starts.
Recently, at the Canadian Grand Prix in Montreal, Motoring had the opportunity to visit the Shell Trackside Lab located in the Ferrari garage and discover how Shell's research benefits not only the Ferrari F1 team, but also consumers like you and me.
We're able to offer trackside analysis of the fuels and oil, so we actually do real-time analysis of both the fuel and oil for Ferrari. Every time the car goes out on the circuit or the fuel is moved or the engine is started, we'll take a sample of both the fuel and the oil, test them, make sure that they're in optimum performance, the same condition that they left our blending facility back in Europe. On the fuel, it's important that it maintains legality. Fuel in Formula One is a highly regulated substance, so we need to make sure that it's legal at all points throughout the race weekend. The engines within Formula One have been fixed for the last few years, and actually one of the only things that the teams have been able to develop is offer performance through fuel, and it's really one of the key ingredients for the performance of Ferrari in Formula One at the moment.
The advantage for the consumer is that it really does fast-track the process at the consumer level.
The fuel that we develop for Ferrari is a totally bespoke product. We develop it for the one-off application, which is Ferrari's Formula One engine. But the rules and regulations behind Formula One dictate that the fuel has to be very close to normal road fuel.
What I found interesting was the fact that Shell took their fuels to Maranello, which is the headquarters for Ferrari. They took Alonso and his F1 car there, they ran the track using Formula One fuel, they drained it, and then they ran it on V-Power. You know, you have to figure, if V-Power is good enough for a high-powered Formula One car, it's good enough for just about anything that's on the road.
It's incredibly important to use high-grade quality gasoline such as V-Power. There's a number of different attributes that V-Power can bring to help maintain performance in a modern vehicle. Efficient combustion, detergent package within V-Power helps to clean the engine, make sure that it can operate as it was designed to do, and all sorts of different bits and pieces that work together for a holistic formulation that is really, really going to benefit the motorist.
The modern engine has never moved so quickly in its life. The push for better fuel economy, lower emissions and all the rest of it is producing engines that are so complex. The advantage Shell have is that because of their affiliation with Ferrari, they're fast-tracking the fuel so that when they get to the street level, they've already been proven in an engine that is far more complex than even the latest engine in the latest car that's on the street.
Shell-Ferrari partnership is one of the most famous and successful in modern motorsport. Everything that we learn, or the knowledge that we capture using our trackside laboratory, we funnel that directly into the product development activities for road-going fuels such as V-Power.
The Motoring Tip of the Week is brought to you by Walmart. For everyday low prices on Pennzoil, conventional and synthetic oils.
Our motoring tip of the week, maintaining small engines. I find most of my clients are pretty good about maintaining the engine in their vehicle. But I find that with small engines, people only really think of servicing them and fixing them when they're broken and they won't work, they want to use them, and now they won't do what they want to do. So here's the 4 things you need to do to these small engines on an ongoing basis so they'll last virtually forever. Now on this Honda lawnmower, changing the oil is dead simple. You actually remove the oil dipstick where you check the oil, tilt the machine up on its side, and drain out the 0.55 of a liter of 10W30 oil that's keeping that engine alive. Second thing you need to do, make sure that during that period of inactivity that you use fuel stabilizer so that the fuel in the tank and in the carburetor doesn't go bad. And it will go bad if you don't put stabilizer in it during the off season. Then you're going to have carburation problems. Third thing you must do, very important, during the off season for that vehicle, you want to fog the engine with a product like this. This is an aerosol product. You spray into the intake of the engine. With the engine running, the engine ingests it, and it fogs, as the name implies, fogs the whole top of the end of the engine with an oil that's very clingy and stays in there for that period of inactivity. So you won't get any rust on the cylinder walls, the piston rings, the valves, everything in the top end of the engine will be perfect next season when you want to use it. And the fourth thing you need to do, make sure that you use no ethanol-based fuel. That happens to be Shell V-Power, no ethanol. You see that right on the pump. And that's what you want. You don't need that high octane, but you need the fact that it has no ethanol. So make sure that that tank that you're feeding all these small engines with has no ethanol in the fuel. Those four things done on a year-round basis will keep those small engines alive indefinitely. This one, by the way, 36 years old. My dad bought it in 1977. We use it every single year on our property up north, and it runs on the hottest days of the years with the throttle pinned, gets used for sodding lawns, doing the garden, whatever, and that engine has never been touched, and it runs as perfect today as it did in 1977. That's your motoring tip of the week.
A very influential automotive designer told me once, it doesn't cost any more to build a good-looking car than an ugly one. That designer was responsible for the Audi TT, and his name, Peter Schreier. Now he's the head of design for Hyundai and Kia, and he's come up with that. That is a 2013 Kia Optima SX Turbo, and this is the 2-minute test drive.
When I first saw this Optima, it was in the company of some other manufacturers at an auto show, and they all had one thing in common: worried looks on their faces. The outside of this Optima is stunning. This is the more powerful SX version with a turbocharged 274 horsepower 2-liter GDI engine. It also has 18-inch wheels and the sport-tuned suspension. It also gets the steering wheel paddles, sport seats, signature sport grille, and unique sport bumpers. This one has a 6-speed auto, but the LX does come with a real manual. It also features the Active Eco system, which optimizes the engine and transmission for maximum fuel efficiency at the push of a button.
These wheels, like I mentioned earlier, actually they're great looking, but here's the problem with them. They're actually flush with the outside of the tire, so you go anywhere near a curb, and this is what happens: a lot of damage. The good news is Kia is aware of this problem, and they're going to fix it on future models. This Kia Optima SX handles very well. And I know what you're saying, Russ, you're on an oval, it's all left turns, how can you tell me that? Simply because a car that's balanced will turn left or right, and this Optima is really well balanced. It's so well balanced, I think it's actually better than the Genesis R-Spec we tested just a few weeks ago. Here's an example of a good balanced car. I can make it do what I want. Even though it's front-wheel drive, I can back it into this corner simply by going like this. See, it oversteers. That tells me it's balanced. I can make it do what I want, not what it wants. Not too long from now, when Kia looks back on how far they have come, they'll be able to point to the Optima and know a few things. Firstly, they built a car with exceptional value in its class, and secondly, Herr Schreier was right. It doesn't cost any more to build a good-looking car. I'm Russ Bond, and this has been the 2-Minute Test Drive.
Closed captioning for Motoring 2013 is brought to you by
Greener, fuel efficient, global. This is Chevrolet Now, driving our world forward.
This is a Chinese driver's license. That's right. I was legal to drive in China. How difficult is it to get one of these things? Well, you get off the plane at the Beijing airport. There's an office right there in the airport. You show them your international driver's permit, which is that $25 thing you get at CAA. Looks like something you made for your mother back in grade 3. They take your picture, laminate this puppy up, give them $20, and there's your license. Now, it's only good for the 2 days that you're actually in China. It took 5 days to get a visa, 2 days to use a driver's license. It took me 5 minutes to get the license. Now, judging from what I saw on the streets of Beijing, this is how everybody gets their license there. There's no evidence that anybody ever had a lesson, let alone took a test. And it's not that they're timid. They're very aggressive, cutting you off, diving into holes in the traffic pattern that simply aren't there, sometimes putting on the right turn signal and then going left just to fake you out. The best move I saw was on a twisty mountain road in the country. I was behind a police van with 5 or 6 cops in the thing, red and blue lights on the roof. They weren't flashing, clearly a police vehicle. A local passed me on the shoulder, and then he passed the cop vehicle on the shoulder. No problem, away they go. Now, you might think that this would lead to serious fatality statistics in China, and you're right. You can't believe any statistics you get from a totalitarian regime like Communist China, but the numbers we do get suggest they're huge. Now, a researcher at the School of Economics in London, England, has concluded that the fatality rate in a country is proportional to how long the country has been motorized. It doesn't matter whether you started in the 1890s, the 1990s, or the 2010s, even with better roads and better car technology, people kill themselves at about the same rate for about 25 years, and then it starts to dwindle down. So maybe the Chinese people are going to have to wait another 25 years before they stop killing themselves at the rate they're doing now. That said, you can't help but think that maybe a little tougher licensing than this couldn't hurt. I'm Jim Kenzie.
So did General Motors get it right with the 2014 Silverado? The consensus is they did, and yes, Ford should be concerned. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not the truck guy. I leave that to Howard and Bill. However, the one feature that really impressed me about this new Silverado was the quiet ride. It could be the quietest vehicle I have driven all year, truck or car. So there you go. Before we go, make sure you check us out at motoringtv.com and join us on Facebook for the total motoring experience. That's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars, trucks, and the people who drive them.
Motoring 2013 has been brought to you in part by Shell V-Power, premium gasoline.